This is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, here on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. And our interviews brought to you, as always, by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. A lot of stuff going on in our state as far as Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, as we heard this morning in our news at the top of the hour. Also, some happenings going on with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So joining us right now to comment on these issues and more is State Senator Joe Pittman. Senator, it's good to have you on the phone with us once again.
Joshua, good morning.
All right. And you don't be so formal. You can call me Josh.
Okay, very good.
All right. But Joe, let's talk about first the RGGI initiative. Obviously, yesterday, a pretty impactful day. We heard a lot of statements from one of your from your colleague in the State House, Jim Struzzi. We also heard from the PA Power Jobs Initiative as well on this. And obviously, you put out your own statement saying you were very disappointed in the Department of Environmental Protection's Environmental Quality Board and their decision on Tuesday, I believe it was.
Yeah, it is disappointing, but as I said in the statement, it wasn't a surprise. I mean, the governor and his team continued to march toward attempting to put us into this multi-state scheme unilaterally, and we continued to push back because we believe that this is a role for the General Assembly. So there are a few more chapters to be written in this process. In fact, the Senate Environmental Committee is looking to schedule a meeting sometime probably in August to submit a disapproval notice on the regulation. And without getting into too many weeds, that will then start another process of review. And my hope is that ultimately we can have an honest conversation with the governor's office to understand how we can move forward productively without singling out our communities for the economic impacts that otherwise will be coming.
But I would assume then that you'll be a part of those meetings talking about the economic impact on Indiana County and elsewhere. Also, just as kind of the big thing about it all is the process that this thing has taken. It has seemed to, as you said, it has circumvented the state Congress immensely.
Yes, it has circumvented us, and the most frustrating part to me is there is no real evidence that entering us into this program will reduce carbon emissions overall. Because as we've said time and again, the power that we receive doesn't just come from Pennsylvania. It comes from West Virginia. It comes from Ohio. It comes from states that are not in RGGI. And all it will do is put us at a competitive disadvantage in producing power, and yet we will still use power that is generated from carbon-emitting sources. If you look at the grid today, right now, you'll see that the overwhelming majority of the power that we're using is from carbon-emitting sources, natural gas and coal. And then the third biggest source is nuclear, and after that, everything else is really a blip on the radar.
One of the things that has gone through is your bill concerning the governor putting Pennsylvania into any sort of program like RGGI without consulting the state Congress first, and that's been your big weapon so far. It's passed the state Senate, and it is, I guess, it's on its way to the House, or there's a companion bill in the House. I know that for sure.
Yeah, it passed the Senate by a bipartisan veto-proof majority. This is not a partisan issue. There were 6 Democrat senators that also voted for our legislation because they understand, first and foremost, it's simply giving us a voice in the process, and secondly, there's a real economic impact here to blue-collar family-sustaining jobs, and they believe that we need to all have a voice in how we move forward. So it's over in the House. The House and the Senate, when we reconvene in the fall, will work out how to move this ahead. But obviously, if the House is able to gain a veto-proof majority as well, then I think the whole dynamic of our conversation shifts, because at that point the governor has to really come to the table and understand we have real concerns and figure out a way to address them.
It's got to be, though, a little bit frustrating to not be in session right now, to be in recess and to see this going on and to have it be done in video format where the public was not even allowed to attend in person.
Well, that has been frustrating. I mean, the timing of all of this, I find to be very much lacking in transparency. When the governor issued this executive order almost 2 years ago, he said, we will engage with affected communities. When he delayed his order last summer by 6 weeks, he said, we're going to use this extra time to engage affected communities. Now, that engagement has really been minimal at best. They've hired this company out of Chicago, Illinois, called the Delta Institute to come in and supposedly, develop a game plan on, how we repair our economy. To me, I can write the plan in about 10 minutes. Give us jobs. If we're going to eliminate coal-fired power plants, then give us manufacturers that pay good wages with good benefits, that produce windmills, that produce solar panels, that have actual production that shows that we have jobs. To me, I don't necessarily care where the jobs come from. I just want the people I represent to have the opportunity to access living wage jobs, particularly like the ones we have currently in the power producing sector.
All right, let's move on to another topic now, Joe. You had a release yesterday as well with your reaction to the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education's vote concerning the consolidation of 6 universities into 2. Obviously, IUP not affected by this consolidation effort, but at least not in the immediate impact. But do you believe that there's going to be some sort of secondary impact for IUP?
Well, I think there is a secondary impact, and I think it can be a positive impact. For many years, IUP has been the flagship of the state system, and candidly, they have subsidized other schools in the system that have not been able to manage their own operations. And as a result of that, we're now seeing the impact of that subsidy hurting IUP itself. The reality is the enrollment in the state system is down about 28%. We have 14 campuses that are bigger, not only geographically than they need to be, but also from an employment perspective, bigger than they need to be. And IUP inflicted great pain on itself, particularly the last 2 years, to try to right-size the institution. The concern I have is that the other schools in the system aren't doing the same thing. And so this integration hopefully allows these other 6 schools to right-size themselves, which invariably helps IUP because that's less stress on the other schools to come in and subsidize their operations. I mean, to me, this is the ultimate definition of socialism, the way it's been working, because the system takes money from other schools to prop up weaker universities.
Right.
And what we're seeing now is they're running out of other people's money, and that's the problem.
Were you surprised that the decision was a unanimous one?
I was not, because there's a broad recognition here that we have to do something drastic with the system. And this issue is multi-pronged. Don't get me wrong, IUP has some work to do in their own right. The student housing on campus is unaffordable. Mm-hmm. There is excess capacity there, and it's a barrier to entry of freshmen into IUP. And I've had plenty of conversations with Dr. Driscoll and his team about ways to make that more affordable, to make IUP itself more attractive to bringing in students into the university.
The General Assembly, you mentioned in your statement, has allocated $50 million for the state system redesign effort. You said that you expect that these funds are going to be used up pretty quick.
Well, I do, and in fact, next week, the Senate Appropriations Committee, which I'm on, will be holding a briefing from the Chancellor of the state system. That will be on Tuesday. And he will be coming in to give us another update on the action that the Board of Governors took just yesterday, as well as how he sees things going forward. Our intent is to allocate $200 million to the redesign effort. But I will say what we did is we allocated $50 million in this fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
From my vantage point, I need to see that they're using these dollars in a proper manner before we allocate a next $50 million in the upcoming budget season. So I think this is going to be an important hearing. What I don't want to see is them using this $50 million to Band-Aid the 6 schools that are being consolidated and avoid some of the difficult decisions that need to be made.
Anything else you want to talk about today, Senator?
Well, those are two obviously very, very big topics. There's plenty going on. This has been anything but a quiet summer. I'm looking forward to focusing on some local initiatives here in the coming weeks, and hopefully we'll have some good news to report on the economic front in the weeks ahead.
I hope so, too. Senator Pittman, thank you very much for joining us on Indiana in the Morning. All the best. Please keep us posted.
Josh, same to you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Senator Joe Pittman joining us this morning here on Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, and our interviews are brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people.